Today I'm going to pull two cards with the intention of getting advice from Spirit at the time you view this video. So let's pull the cards now. Page of Swords and the Queen of Wands. Okay, Page of Swords and the Queen of Wands. Look at how pretty these cards are. I'm especially struck right now by this Queen of Wands. Isn't that beautiful? Wow. So what these two cards are speaking to me about in this reading is definitely take action on your wild and crazy ideas. And by wild and crazy, I don't mean, I guess I don't mean even crazy. I mean wild ideas, like wild as in alignment with Mother Nature and Mother God. A lot of times, though, our wild ideas to people who think more conventionally can look crazy. But certainly in this reading, what is wanting to come through is that if you put some effort and some action behind these wild, or maybe I was gonna say, if you do this, then you'll get that. I'm not gonna give any sort of predictions like that, but the advice from Spirit is clearly do that. Put some action, put some effort behind your wild ideas. I think we're all collectively being invited to rewild ourselves, to remember that we're not just a part of nature, we are nature, to remember that things are really hard when we get out of alignment with Mother God's principles and Mother Nature's principles, and things fall into balance and become a lot easier when we are in alignment with wild principles, right? And isn't it crazy that conventionally speaking, we've gotten so away from wild when in reality, wild is the only thing that actually works. And so I feel like there's it's as if a Spirit would like to acknowledge you for being willing to look at the wild, to invest in the wild, to consider the wild, to allow those wild ideas to come in, because that in and of itself is an achievement. Because in our culture, we've been so trained away from the wild towards conventional thinking, and so even the fact that you have some wild creative ideas flowing through you is an achievement. So you should acknowledge that in yourself, celebrate that in yourself. And now what Spirit is asking you to do, so this is kind of like a request from Spirit or advice from Spirit, is to put some action, to put some effort behind these wild plans. Because I think that's what's needed in our culture more and more. So each of us, I think individually, our life gets better when we allow rewilding to happen, which means we get better and different ideas from Mother God about our life. And then the key is then that we can ground that energy by action, right? And the more each of us are doing that individually, then collectively things can change for the better, right? So as we are willing to rewild, and as we're willing to not only do that process ethereally, is that a word? Hopefully you understand what I mean. Like put the action behind it. The action is what, as physical humans, what grounds this wild, beautiful energy into our lives, into this physical realm. And so there's like that combo is that paradox, that combo, that those two things together is your advice from Spirit. And it's kind of weird, isn't it? Because it's like, it almost seems like these two things can't coexist. Because sometimes when we think of wild, when we have our like conventional lens on and we think of something that's wild, like I said before, it seems quote unquote crazy, right? But the reality is wild can coexist with hardworking action, right? Like wands represent passion. Oh, and you know what's cool? It's cool that this is the Queen of Wands because queens obviously embody the more feminine aspects of living, right? So wands embody like how we're funneling our passion and our action. And so I think there's like a call here too to not act in terms of like force, But to act in more intuitive ways, which is what the feminine energy can represent. So there's rewilding that you've clearly have done. And I think advice from spirit is continue to do that. That's important for all of us to do. Unlearning, rewilding. But you've clearly done that. Now you're starting to receive wild ideas that to people who don't think like you seem crazy. And spirit's advice is put those wild ideas into action. But don't do it through force. Do it through intuition. Do it through more feminine ways of being. But the Queen of Wands, so like feminine action energy isn't passive energy. Do you know what I mean? It's still powerful energy. It's just not forceful energy. You know, a lot of times with a conventional way of thinking, we often think that to work hard, to funnel our passion into action, it has to be forceful. I think it's time for us all to like unlearn that and realize like we can be very active, very powerful, and we can do it in very feminine ways, and we can do it in very wild ways. And as I'm saying all this, I'm like noticing this purple. Like, look at this. We got purple in this Page of Swords. We've got like purple here. And I don't know if you can see this. You might not be able to because of the candle and the light. But there's like this purple amethyst there. So what that is speaking to me, you know what? There's also lavender in here. I just noticed that right now. Isn't that cool? Okay, so there's a couple things coming to me with that. One is, and like, look at how the purple is like right in the middle of this card, right? So what that is speaking to, and sorry, sometimes I just can't get over all this, but like, look at, it almost looks like amethyst, doesn't it? Like with how the purple is like dark purple and then the lighter purple. So what that's speaking to me about is like because amethyst can often be like a transmuting stone. It's a very healing stone. And so there's something here about like, as you are practicing this, as you are putting this advice from spirit into action, which is continuing to allow the rewilding, which is celebrating yourself when you get wild ideas, and then combining the wild ideas with empowered, creative, intuitive action. As you do that, it's a very healing process for you. So there's aspects of your past that are being transmuted, alchemized from difficulty to more ease, from untended wounds to actual true healing. So, and I think that's part of like what this is representing. Like, it's not just all purple. Do you see that? So it's kind of like, this is a very robust process for you. There's a lot involved. It's worth doing, putting these wild ideas into action, because it's impacting a lot of areas of your life. It's like lighting up a lot of areas of yourself. A lot of parts of yourself are getting to come alive. And in that, a lot is happening, including a part of that being healing. Really strong healing, alchemizing the past, transmuting pain into healing, transmuting pain into wisdom. And so I think it's just a really beautiful reading. If you're tuning in and you've gotten to this point and it's resonating, I just wanted to encourage you to keep going, because with whatever these wild and crazy ideas are, like and to maybe a couple things, like maybe to yourself, stop calling them crazy, because there's a reason that keeps coming out for me. So it's almost like to honor your ideas now more, even though you have probably felt crazy because maybe people around you aren't understanding you. But to honor these ideas by no longer calling them crazy, by calling them wild, and by honoring the fact that you are getting these ideas because you're more in alignment with Mother God and Mother Nature. And then I think what I'm noticing now is how this Queen of Wands is all red in the background. And what that's speaking to me about right now in this reading is, the red can represent your root chakra. And so I think there's something here about like, and your root chakra is like kind of foundational, right? It's like, how do we get our needs met in our physical reality? So there's something here about like, this is restructuring your foundation. So it's a different way of saying the same thing I said about the amethyst, the healing. There's something foundational about this advice from spirit, about this season of life that you're in, about these new actions that you're willing to take, these new ideas that you're getting. It's restructuring your foundation in a really beautiful way. And that can be difficult at times. So I think there's like this, I think what wants to be said is just to like honor the fact that that's what's happening. Because when we restructure things at the foundation, like that takes time and effort, and it's not overnight, and it's a messy process, but then your foundation is different. Like your foundation is different. Do you know what I mean? Like everything built up from there is different. And as tedious as it is to restructure foundations, as difficult as it is, as time consuming as it is, like it really does come back to that quote, I think it's from the Bible, where it's like, you can't build a house on sandy soil. Like you can, but eventually it's going to crumble. And so there's something here going on where at the root, in terms of your just energy, how you operate in the world, there's restructuring going on. It's very beautiful, but it's not going to be an overnight process. And there's going to have to be some commitment here. And maybe that's another message from the Queen of Wands. Just like realizing there's going to have to be some conviction in this process for it to what am I trying to say? Like for it to happen fully. Does that make sense? Like, so for it to, so you don't stop short before the foundation is completely restructured. You want to have some conviction, have some commitment to the process. And so that is the advice from spirit. Like it's worth it to be convicted to this process, to be committed to this process. Even though sometimes it seems like everything might be crumbling, because sometimes it is, because when we restructure foundations, things have to crumble. And so I think just what wants to be said is if you're willing to go through it versus stopping short and going back to your old ways of being, there's an entirely new experience of life that's going to be available to you because you've restructured at the foundational level. So I'm really excited for you. You're clearly just like a beautiful, creative spirit. So I would just love to see what you create in the world. So selfishly, I'm saying, keep going, keep going, keep going. But I know how difficult it can be to keep going when you're restructuring at the foundation, when you're doing things that are wild, that other people feel are crazy. So go at your own pace and take care of yourself along the way. But realize you're doing not only yourself, but others around you. And then that ripples into the collective such a service by being willing to rewild, being willing to ground that wild energy into reality, and then to live with that stronger foundation in place.